Hello, my friends. I hope that you are enjoying my week off. That's right. My week is off. Maybe you're not off, but I hope that you're enjoying it. I'm very self-centered. I apologize. I hope you're having a great week. I am relaxing, trying to do nothing, which is a struggle for me, more than I thought it would be, but spending time with really great friends and family and enjoying my time off. And thank you very much for your support during this time off. A lot of listeners sharing some of their favorite shows that I should replay, and I always appreciate Kim in Iowa tweeting that out, and Sandman texted me and said, hope you're enjoying time off. I am, Sandy, and said that he thinks I should repost episode 814 with the Mocha Gardener, Ashley Thomas. Yeah, perfect timing for that. So I will share a link to that. I'm not going to have time to re-record anything to repost it, but I will definitely share it in the Patreon email for subscribers. And, well, I'll just put it everywhere on social media because it's a great idea to share. Thank you. If anybody else has any ideas of your past favorite guests or episodes, by all means, you can reach out and let me know, and I will use every platform I have to let people know. All right, so let's get to my guest today. You haven't heard this one. This is my latest with S.E. Cupp, who, of course, has worked at Fox News, at MSNBC, and now for a while at CNN. She's a columnist for the New York Daily News, and now she's hosting a new show. It's called Battleground. It's going to go daily in a couple of weeks, but it's specifically going to be focused on the key states in the 2024 election. It's going to appear on your local news affiliate, the local Fox affiliates, which is not Fox News, of course. And it looks really interesting. Sounds very interesting. Essie and I talk about that and a few other things. As always, there's a disagreement or two, but always thoughtful, always interesting. And I really enjoy our conversations and our friendship. Find her on social media. She's really great on Instagram and as well on Twitter, of course. Watch her on CNN. But most importantly, check out Battleground, which looks really great on your local Fox affiliates, which most of you probably have. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you cut the cord. I don't know. But hopefully you can find that, watch it, and get something out of it. All right. Here I am with S.E. Cupp. Oh my gosh, look who it is. It's the co-host of a new show, Battleground. Huh? S.E. Cupp?
I'll correct you. I'm not the co-host. I'm the host.
Mm-hmm. Oh, who's the other guy that they showed in the promo?
Oh, that's my EP.
Oh, that's all right. That could.
He's a driving force of our show as well, but there's one host, man. You're looking at her.
I had no idea. Listen, I'm going to promote this with just your face. I don't think producers should be shown ever. Okay. They should need to be talked to. No eye contact is what I told my old producer.
It's in the writer.
Tell me about this new show and how we can watch it. It's going to be 5 days a week?
So it's starting as a weekly. We launched June 10th on Monday. It'll be every Monday on your local Fox affiliate. So Fox TV, which I'll point out is not Fox News. And we have a real specific mission. We are covering news out of the swing states only. There's 7 of them. They alone will decide this election. And so we're watching them very carefully. We're watching the news out of the swing states, polls out of the swing states. We're talking to voters in the swing states, and we're relying on all of our local reporters and affiliates to tell us what's really happening on the ground there instead of the national conversation, the Trump trials. All that stuff is very well covered by all the cable networks and streamers. This is a very specific show in an election year. So I'm excited to talk about the election this way. And then, it goes to a daily in August as we ramp up to the election.
Ooh, it's very important. It's exactly what should be talking about. I mean, as an activist, I want everybody to focus on those states too. So pouring every resource, including themselves, into being in those states. But I guess you'll have this network of correspondents in those localities to interview. I was going to ask you who you'll talk to, but I guess you're going to have it built in every one of those places.
That's exactly right. And it's easier to tell you who we're not going to interview. Pundits and people like me. We're not interviewing personalities. We're interviewing local reporters, pollsters, people who live in these battleground towns and cities to tell us what real issues are happening, whether it's housing affordability, soaring rent costs, opioids, whatever is localized and impacting people's voting decisions and decision making. That's what we want to talk about. So I'm sorry, Pete, we will not have you on the show. You don't live in a battleground state.
I'm worried I do after losing the Board of Election campaign in Rockland County this week and seeing all those people show up in the Bronx. Apparently, it wasn't that many
Trump,
people.
I know. But yeah, we're not going to have people like you and I on.
But yeah, and you absolutely shouldn't. I'll be amazing for 23 seconds. No, I think that's super important that you're doing it that way.
By the way, just clip that. I'll be amazing for 23 seconds. Just clip that. Just that. With no explanation.
We know each other well, but everybody knows that about me.
I don't know that about you, but okay.
Oh, yeah. They've seen my stand-up ads. I'm talking about it. I was just talking about how quickly I can change a tire. Yeah. So I think the problem is you're going to talk to people who are worried about a problem that doesn't exist to get into the bigger problem that I see, that we lost our Board of Education over trans kids in the bathroom. We got thumped, but it wasn't a thing. It's not a thing. And they made it a thing, meaning they made they made it seem like our board members passed a law, but they didn't. New York State passed a law. Mm-hmm. Board member. So same thing as Stop the Steal. Whole bunch of idiots or people who believed that the election had been stolen now went to jail for a lie. How much are you worried about people being legitimately concerned, truly believing that vaccines will kill them?
I'm worried about all kinds of conspiracy theories, disinformation, and misinformation. We should all be very worried about that. And it's hard to combat. I'd like to believe that the press does a good job of that, but the press is so bifurcated and distrusted that what is the press today? Is the press Twitter? Is the press the New York Times? They certainly have an angle. Is the press cable news or is the press local news? Is the press your favorite Facebook page?
That's all that matters in my town. Favorite Facebook page.
Exactly.
Everybody gets their information. So anybody can go on there and say whatever they want that's happening in our town, happening in our school. And before the truth ever, even if they ever learn the truth, the lie has hit everybody in town.
Yeah, it's the virality and the speed at which this is disseminated. It's almost impossible to contain and combat. I don't have the answer for that, but I know that a show like Battleground is definitely aware of paying attention to that. We're not looking to cover the conspiracy theories or the fringe. We're looking to cover what is mattering most to most voters. And when we look at the polls out of the swing states, that kind of stuff is not on it. It is real clear what a lot of voters, just sort of their top lines are. They're worried about the economy and inflation. They're worried about housing costs. They're worried about immigration. They're worried about crime. This is it. And you can drill down to some hyper-localized issues and some very personal issues, but those are the top lines everywhere we've looked.
But I would say even some of those sometimes are either conspiracy or very exaggerated. For example, crime was a huge issue in our last election where Mike Lawler won, but we are in the safest community in America. And it hasn't gotten worse, but they used it, meaning it's a conspiracy theory. You take one crime that happened and you make it seem like there's more crimes. And I worry about some of those things that just aren't accurate.
There's definitely a tendency, not just among politicians, but voters too, to exaggerate a problem. That doesn't mean it isn't a problem, but it might not be to the scale that they think it is, because the feeling is that it's a much bigger problem. I don't think that's cynical. I just think that's how people are feeling. They're feeling a way about the economy that is not entirely backed up by numbers, but they're still feeling that way about the economy. It's important to acknowledge those feelings. And I think Democrats have increasingly been coming around to the idea that we need to acknowledge people's feelings on crime and immigration and the economy. It's not a conspiracy theory to think I feel less safe than I did 4 years ago. The numbers don't have to back that up. You can personally feel that. And I know, I certainly feel that when I go certain places like Washington, D.C. and New York City. I feel that. So, I mean, there's, you've got to speak to voters where they are, what they're worried about, without leaning into and making their fears exacerbated and using and weaponizing their fears.
Any states that have you started with this show yet? Have anything that you've looked at and then you want to preview?
What's really interesting, and I mentioned this just now, housing affordability is a really important and super interesting issue. It doesn't get covered very well.
Yeah.
Say it again.
I was just going to say, that is a real legit problem
No, it's real. And it's funny, not funny. It's interesting. In the swing states is where rent has soared the highest. And there's different schools of thought as to how to solve housing affordability. Both sides, Republicans and Democrats, acknowledge it's a problem. So there's bipartisan acknowledgement that this problem is real. There's just different avenues at coming out the solution. And Republicans don't like Democratic solutions. Democrats don't like Republican solutions. Meanwhile, most people who are just trying to either stay in their home or buy a first home are just make this go away. Just make this easier. Just make this better. So that's, I think, a real issue. It's a tangible issue. It's not just affecting one kind of community. It's affecting lots of communities. It's affecting people who are very affluent. It's affecting people who are middle class and maybe trying to upgrade their home. And it's affecting first-time home buyers. So I love that issue as a way into covering this election because it's real and it's impacting people in all kinds of places.
Yeah, affordability. There's so much we could say about it for sure. And we talk about it as much as I can here. But let me ask you now, moving on to, and everybody needs to go, battlegroundnews.com. I'll link to it in the show notes if you don't remember that. Or say you're driving and you're listening to this and you don't want to die. You don't want people to...
Don't die.
Battlegroundnews.com. You don't text and drive, do you? I hope.
Never.
I would never do it. I've never done it. I've never even done it ever, except for when I do sometimes, which is
except for those times that you do. Right. Same here.
The worst. Okay. So I want to ask you about another dangerous thing. I wanted to give you the opportunity just to talk. You've been tweeting a lot about, and no one's paying and hasn't been paying attention to Syria. You're on the board of a really important organization, or at least you were and you've been talking about what's going on there. So much attention in the region, obviously being paid to Gaza as it should be. Anything you want to say about what's happening there? You've been tweeting a lot about it, at least.
The same thing that's been happening for now 12 years, 13 years. The Syrian war is still ongoing. Bashar al-Assad's regime is still killing its own people. Russia and Iran are helping, right? That's why when this first started, some of us were like, hey guys, this is going to be bad. This is going to be a problem. You're emboldening some really bad actors in the region. And they did. And while attention should certainly be on Gaza and Ukraine, and my organization is in both of those theaters as well, helping kids, there are still a lot of suffering people in Syria. They're suffering from displacement. They're suffering economically. They're suffering physically. There's still unknown missing persons who have been detained in Syria. You never find out where they go, where they end up, if they're alive. There have been recent reports out of Syria of torture, stuff we thought was happening, but now we have some insight. We know it's happening. So it's still an awful, tragic, terrible war that's happening. And this didn't get anywhere near as much as the attention as Gaza got in 13 years. I don't think it's gotten this kind of attention. And I'm sure there's lots of reasons for that. But for me, that will always be somewhat tragic.
Yes, which is why I wanted to bring it up, and which is why I'm happy that you're still talking about it, because I wasn't paying any attention to it until I went through your Twitter feed in anticipation of talking to you today. So I'm just as worse as everybody else. Okay. I don't know if you knew this. I'm Syrian.
I did not know that.
My dad's dad came to America from, at the time it was Syria, and then it became Lebanon. So technically I'm Lebanese because the country broke away. But yeah, my dad is half that, which means
cool.
Almost nothing, because by the time I was born, there was nothing left. No ethnicity, no tradition, just grape leaves or something every once in a while. Although his dad and my great uncle spoke Arabic, but I didn't know that's what it was when I heard that. Yeah. Let's talk about the campaign. First of all, you've got advice. You've written a piece over the Daily News, advice for President Biden to stop blaming polls and polling. And what is your advice for the Biden administration about that, or anything else that they're doing or not doing?
I can't tell if there's denialism or posturing over on Team Biden. There could be a real denial that things are not going great. Meaning I don't believe the polls and I don't believe voters when they tell me they're worried about X, Y, and Z. I've seen that. There could also just be a posturing, we know we're in trouble, but we're going to act like we're not. And I talk to people in the Biden campaign, but I don't think they trust me that much to tell me what's going on in their inner thoughts. But I worry for either of those scenarios because one, you want turnout, and turnout means you tell people we are in a very tight election. We do not have this locked up. We are not confident, which is why we need all of you to go out. And also just to acknowledge some very real sort of blind spots that you could fix either through policy or if not policy, messaging, that if you're not acknowledging are real, I worry that Trump is going to seize on that, and Trump is going to eat into voting blocks, as he's doing, who feel ignored or abandoned by the left.
I get so frustrated because I always feel like this administration, you could arguably say that they've pandered to every one of their demographics. They've given everybody something or argued for something, and they've had huge accomplishments. I just was seeing the statistics of the women, people of color that work in the administration or that have been appointed by as judges, federal judges. So just so many things, and obviously policies that have been passed, but it just doesn't resonate. Like young people don't know, immigrants don't know, the DACA kids don't know. I think some of the gun violence advocates they should always be held to task. But I feel like so much of the actual accomplishments, or at least efforts that have been made, don't resonate with the people that they need to be resonating with. Do you think I'm off? Am I saying anything that makes sense?
No, I think it's true that there have been some policy initiatives that either just take a long time, right? And so you're not feeling, it's not like a check in your mailbox, which is problematic in terms of messaging on wins. But also some of the things you mentioned, I just don't think matter to vote. If I haven't gotten a raise in 5 years and I'm living paycheck to paycheck and I have to ration my money to afford gas, I don't care that he put 3 women in the cabinet or whatever it is. Right. That does not impact me at all. And when I saw a Biden ad recently, like this week, it was an effort at speaking to Black voters, and the voiceover was talking about how Trump's involvement in Central Park 5 and discriminatory housing practices 40 years ago. And I'm thinking, gosh, would that resonate with me if I'm a Black voter feeling like life has only gotten worse for me? That stuff is ecumenically important, but is that impacting my life? Something that happened 40 years ago, reminding me Trump's a racist. I know that. Is that really impacting my life? That's the sort of thing I worry. Biden campaign, I don't think, is connecting the dots. Here's what we're doing to directly help you, and here's what the other guy would do to directly hurt you. I don't think that's being communicated.
Speaking of the other guy, how closely are you paying attention to, it feels like the networks and all the people who would have you talk are booking legal experts to talk about the Trump trial. I wonder, that being said, how closely you're paying attention to this trial that's been taking place, and if you have any thoughts about any of it.
I was paying attention because I'm still on CNN and it's my job to talk about that. So I was paying attention. I couldn't have, and I said this before the trial started, I couldn't have drawn or scripted a better witness for Trump than Michael Cohen. I knew Michael Cohen. First of all, I know Michael Cohen. I've been personally threatened by Michael Cohen. He's not a good guy. And the rebrand of Michael Cohen's been rehabbed and he's seen the light. Bullshit. I knew he was going to be terrible because he's a liar. He's like the habitual liar. Maybe that's because Trump trained him to lie for him, or that's just who he is. But
I think that's the application. You have to, when you apply to the Trump organization, you must lie. You have to steal from a child.
That too. And he did steal. He admitted he did steal from the Trump organization on character and background and everything. The absolute worst key witness for the prosecution, best key witness for the defense. So I guess when you ride down that road and you say, we're going to live and die on Michael Cohen, right? Like we're just going to either live with him or die with him. That's what this is going to land on. Did you live with Michael Cohen or did you die with Michael Cohen? What
do you make of the legal analysis that, Michael Cohen is to Trump as Sammy the Bull was to John Gotti? Everybody knew that Sammy the Bull murdered a bunch of people, but he was a key witness in convicting his old boss. Everybody knows that Michael Cohen, everybody who works for the Trump organization, most importantly the jury, knows that everybody's a dirtbag and a liar.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand generally when you're prosecuting criminals and you want someone to turn. Generally, those people aren't great either. The credibility issue that Michael Cohen has, I think, is unique. I don't know that all of those other key witnesses, those mafioso, for example, had perjured themselves, already lied to Congress, already lied in open court or depositions. I just don't. The credibility of Michael Cohen is so shot to hell. And it came up again and again, not just in the past, but like during the trial, his credibility. Was he telling the truth in that moment even? If all you need is one juror to see reasonable doubt, because I don't trust Michael Cohen, and they gave a bunch of receipts, so it's not just Michael Cohen's voice. However, he's your key witness and you're being asked to believe what he said he did when he can't even tell the truth about what he did in the moment. Sorry. I don't think that case holds up. I think Trump's going to win.
The criminal case, you don't think he's going to be convicted?
I don't.
Really? You think the jury will see it?
I do. Huh. And it'll be the wrong verdict because no, I don't think anyone believes he didn't do these things. It's a case of proving it. And it's hard to prove why he did it. I know their defense is he did it because to spare his family embarrassment. I think it's pretty clear he did it because he was running for president. That's the part they have to prove, which is tough. That's intent. But it'll be like Casey Anthony. She did it. She for sure did it. But the prosecution effed up. They effed up. Or OJ. They effed up. He did it for sure.
But what if it's... But OJ's... Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I think, though, about the civil case where... They
got him.
In the jury in the civil case found him guilty. Even if there is the same evidence, granted, there's a lower threshold of proof that's needed. But what if this jury is just whether or not he did it, we're going to find him guilty anyway, because we know he did a billion other crimes.
I think that's why
it's the right thing to do. I'm saying humans in a New York City jury, 5 of which are women.
Yes, but I don't know if you've ever served on jury duty. I have.
Yeah, twice. Yep.
Yeah, and you get, I think. It's different when you go in there. And I think that's why right now, this period where they're doing jury instructions and they're figuring out what to tell the jury, what they can and can't consider is going to be crucial because that's what it's going to come down to. There was a mess of stuff in this trial that came out. Some of it I didn't think was very germane to the trial, but it was salacious. And so they're going to be given really specific instructions. And it's one thing when you're outside to be like, oh, I would totally convict him. I wouldn't even care if he was guilty. I would. You get in there and you're given instructions and you see a judge and this process is very formal and strict and specific. I think most people actually take it pretty seriously.
When I was on a civil jury, I was the alternate, so I didn't actually get a vote. But I was there the whole time. And at the end of the 5 or 6 days, I walked up to the lawyer who lost. It was some lawsuit injury thing. And I said to him, I go, I was just the alternate, but not for nothing. Like, I'm a comedian and you're not likable. You came across as a dick.
You said that?
Yeah, I told him. He was a young lawyer. And I just like, I guess you proved your case. I didn't get to vote on it, but I just want you to know you came across as a real dick. I told him.
What did he say?
He's like, thanks. He said, genuinely, thank you for the feedback. He was young. And I was like, yeah, you got to make us like you because we're still humans. And I don't like you.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember like it was yesterday. Okay, so let's talk also about Nikki Haley, which you've written about as well. I think this was a CNN, right? CNN piece, not a Daily Newser?
Yeah.
Boy, what's to say? Do you know her?
I do. They say don't meet your heroes. She lost me a while ago. She didn't lose me. Like, I've always liked Nikki Haley. When she went into the Trump administration, I was sad, but she went into the UN and it was a bit siloed from some of the other stuff. It wasn't an excuse for me. I still couldn't have done it, but I gave her kind of a pass because she was a bit siloed. And then when she started to run against him, I was back on the Nikki train and I was like, this is great. She's the only one with balls, so to speak, that's actually taking him on and that wants to win. I loved it. But the second she dropped out, I was talking to her campaign every day. And the second she dropped out, I nudged and I was like, she's going to endorse him. And they were like, probably. I'm back out. I'm back out. I still like her and respect her, and I think she would have been great. But now I've lost a little respect because now you're just like all the rest of them. You just want to be in the mix.
It's unbelievable. I guess she did it. The timing of it is because she wants to be considered for VP. That seems to be a pretty obvious analysis. Do you agree?
I don't know that she wants to be considered for VP. I'm sure she'd like to be considered for something, and at the very least, just be kept inside in good company, in good standing inside the party for her to run again.
Or the other analysis, I think people said this at our hangout last night, was that she's still waiting for him to die or get convicted, which would hurt him, and maybe
that could happen. Yeah, she's still getting votes. She just got 25% of the vote in Indiana. She got 22% of the vote in 2 big counties in Pennsylvania. She's still getting votes, even though she's not technically running anymore. So there's all those black swan type scenarios, but she also wasn't required to endorse anybody or tell anyone how she's voting. She could have just said, I'm not discussing that now. And my vote, who I vote for is private. She didn't have to do this. She didn't have to say, I'm not endorsing Trump. She also didn't have to endorse him.
You chose not to be close to power when you abandoned the MAGA, the Republican Party, basically. You chose,
totally.
You chose, and other people, it could be that, I don't make everything a binary, but choosing to be close to power, choosing to not be close to power. One, you're going to probably make more money and be closer to power if that's what you think. And in the other, you're going to be able to sleep at night and maintain your sense of yourself, which is what obviously you did. And you lost.
Yeah, and not without sacrifice. I lost jobs and opportunities and money and proximity to power. I lost friends. And you could argue that what she did is smart. She wants a political career inside this party. I don't have that desire, and so I don't have as much to lose. But again, she didn't have to give him the imprimatur. She could have just stayed silent. But there's nowhere to operate inside the Republican Party if you do that. There's nowhere to go. You're Adam Kinzinger, right? You're Liz Cheney. Right. You're on the outside. And I think that wasn't a place she wanted to be, on the outside.
I got to look this up, and I know you commented about it. I wasn't following this week. Trump backtracks after opening door on birth control restrictions. Facing backlash, Trump walks back comments on restricting contraceptives. S.E. Cupp, how important is women's reproductive rights to this election still? Because I still feel, my opinion is, it starts and ends with it, meaning more people, not just women, will be motivated to come out on that issue alone, where it's actually on the referendum, on the ballot in some places, and almost anything else that we talk about. And I wonder, and it'll be interesting to see how much you talk about it on your new show, Battleground with S.E. Cupp. What about this contraception thing?
Women's reproductive rights is a defining issue of this election. It's a defining issue for women. Most importantly, I think it's a defining issue for Republicans. And so it is bizarre and almost malfeasance for Trump not to have a position yet, for not to know how to talk articulately about abortion, contraception, IVF, all the things. He has literally been all over the map. And I'm not even going back to the 90s when he was a Democrat who favored partial birth abortion. I'm talking just in the past 8 years, he has been unable to articulate a position, what he's for, what he's against. Most recently, he's just been saying states' rights as if that explains anything. It doesn't. The people who believe they got him elected, pro-life conservatives, want to know how many weeks. Are you going to sign a federal ban? They deserve to know all those answers. All voters do. And every time he's asked, it's different. It's a different answer. Right. Or we're going to be coming out with something real soon that never comes out. We're going to release a policy position. You're going to love it. It's going to be really interesting. Never comes out. It's bananas to me that he has not just write it down and memorize what to say every time you're asked about this. Because every time it's different.
I don't think he can memorize it, probably, but I don't think he knows. I feel like he doesn't know what to say. I feel he hasn't figured out the message that's going to resonate, or that he knows that he needs to deliver a different message to different swing states.
There you go.
I don't know, or probably the same message to all the swing states.
But it's crazy because out of one side of his mouth, he scolded Ron DeSantis for a 6-week ban in Florida, said that's way too extreme and it's politically not popular. Okay, if you believe that, that's your thing, that's your lane. Okay. But then on the other side, you can't take credit for 6-week bans, which he's also done. He said, you wouldn't have 6-week bans without me. You wouldn't have the overturn of Roe v. Wade without me. Where are you on this issue then? So you'll support 6-week bans because you just called them too extreme. That's the part he wants to have it all ways. And in doing so, he has it no ways. His allies on the pro-life side don't know where he stands. And the rest of us, I think he's even more extreme than what he's saying. But who knows? Who can tell?
Let me ask you one more important question. I don't think you've been writing about or talking about. We lost 3 board seats this week at my school board, and it was devastating. And we lost over the issue of trans kids being allowed to use the bathroom. Again, a state law, but they made people believe that the board passed the law. That is an issue that it's so infuriating to me because while I care deeply about trans rights and trans people, and especially trans kids, there aren't that many of them. And it isn't an issue. And if you want to talk about sports and stuff, yeah, okay, I'm open to talking about it, but it's really not very many people, and it's not impactful. It's not affecting people. And most importantly, trans people are extremely vulnerable people.
Yeah.
They're most likely to self-harm and so on, and kids and so on. I wonder how much, and obviously it's a huge moneymaker, I think you would agree, in right-wing media and a motivator in right-wing political campaigns, certainly at our board level. I don't know how big of a deal it'll be in congressional campaigns like the one I'm in New York with Mike Lawler versus Mondaire Jones. I don't know how much is going to come up in the presidential election, but boy, does it work. And it works even to turn out liberal Democrats. I think a lot of people of color are turned off by the issue, certainly not motivated by the issue. I think, and I'm being kind here. I wonder what you think about that issue and how it animates campaigns, much less how much money it's making Matt Walsh and other right-wing lunatics.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about these sort of culture war issues or woke, the war on woke,
right?
These are impactful sometimes. These work in some places. They don't work universally. See Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis wanted to make being anti-woke his entire personality, and he thought he could win an election just on that. And no one was buying. It didn't make sense everywhere. And so where it is working, it is effective, whether it's working in an honest way or dishonest way, where it does work some places, but it doesn't work everywhere. And so I don't think you're going to see a lot of national races really deal with that. And that's because they know that when you break the issue down demographically, there's some problems on the left there, right? There's some problems over on the Democratic side in terms of support.
It's absolutely fractured the progressive movement, liberals, Democrats, in different ways for different reasons. And I could unpack it, but I agree. Yeah.
So I think for lots of reasons, some of which are like opposites of each other or opposite sides of the same coin, I don't think this is going to be national because it's a little dangerous to wade into on both sides of it. And it's not universally, it doesn't split down the middle, the rights against it, the lefts for it. It's not that neat. And so I think you'll see it in locations where people know it's going to work.
I'll ask you one more question, which is about the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, not about what he said about women, whatever, if you want to say something about that, but what he said about men and that movement and the Josh Hollies of the world. I ask you specifically because you're a conservative woman. You're not religious, I know, but your husband looks and seems to me, and from what I know of him, he's very masculine. Sometimes like his outfits are he wears like some pastels and stuff, but he's a hunter. He can do he seems very masculine to me from what I've heard about him. I don't think met him. You have a son.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you think about the masculinity issue or how much your husband even thinks about it. Not that you want to portray his views here, but I wonder if you think about that issue in terms of what the kicker said and men need to be masculine as a mom to a boy and just as a commentator and just your thoughts around that as an issue in any way.
I haven't thought about it, like the politics of it as a mom. I don't talk to my son about how men should be at all or how boys should be because I wasn't told how girls should be growing up. There was no distinction. It was you'll do whatever you want to do and, professionally for your life and you'll have kids if you want them or you won't. There wasn't this certainly wasn't this like trad wife mentality that I grew up with, but it just wasn't described to me that way. And so when we do talk about something that like boys should do, we talk about boys being kind to girls, boys taking care of girls, making sure that girls, if they need help, you're there to help. But we don't really talk about gender roles in that way. He's in a lot of ways, all boy, in a lot of ways, very sensitive. Still got a lot of girlfriends. So I don't know. I just don't.
You that he's sensitive? Of course it's okay. He's your son. But do you worry? Like I'm sensitive. I was very sensitive growing up. It's a double-edged sword. It means you can be hurt easily, but you can feel other people's pain. At least that's the way it manifests in me. Yeah. Is that you're not concerned about that?
I am, but it's not because he's a boy. It's because he's got feelings, all of them. I worry that he has my anxiety because he can be anxious at times about things that I wasn't anxious about at that age. So sure, I worry about his feelings, but that's his personality. That's not like I'm worried because he's a boy and that's going to be tougher to navigate. No, I don't. I don't see it that way.
How do you explain that video that leaked out of you screaming at your son, "Stop crying, pussy"?
Oh my God.
It is the truth. That like that's
not real. You have to tell people that's not real.
If it was real, it would be fucking everywhere. You would have to be a real dumb to think that. You would be. But like my friend said to his son who got hurt, suck it up and get back out there. Don't be a pussy. And his wife was like, if you ever say anything like that again, I'll divorce you. But they're both my friends. And I witnessed them fighting about that. And of course I told them, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why would you say that to your son? It's not 1980, dude. But at the same time, not at the same time, there's no equivalency to it, but there is that kind of parenting where that we get conditioned. My daughter, when she was 8, said, Daddy, I don't want anybody to know I'm playing with Legos. I was like, why? She's like, it's a boy thing. I'm like, why do you think that? Why is that a thing? I don't know where that came from. And I told her she could never play Legos again. But then I forced her to make me a sandwich.
Listen, he's 9 and we don't get that political with him. We tell him that there are differences between girls and boys that are important to know just because there are physical differences, but also that he could play with anything he wanted to play with. And when the girlfriends that he would have come over wanted to play with his Legos, they can play with the Legos. And we just try to treat everyone, A, as individuals, and B, collectively, they're just kids. They're all just kids and they all have sensitivities and their own interests. And just I don't need to program him with politics.
I love it. Finally, according to your Instagram page, your husband does have several pair of pink or pink adjacent Salomon pants and shorts. That's his. Okay. More than one pair, I would say.
Way more than one. Yes.
Does he ever not wear a bright color? It seems very... I cannot.
No, it's pretty regular.
Most of the photos I see, you're like on vacation. It's like vacation wear. I don't know what he does on a regular day if he's fishing or something.
He fishes most days, but no, I think it's like there's a New England part of that. He's from Rhode Island. There's a Rhode Island part of that, but it's also he lived in DC for 20 years, and that's a very DC Capitol Hill kind of way to dress too. It's preppy and. Like you come from money, but you don't.
I did that once. I got like a whale belt when I went to Nantucket. I was like, who am I trying to?
There you go.
Thank you so much for talking to me as always. It's so much fun. I missed you and I really appreciate you.
Me too. Thanks for having me on.
And good luck on the new show. I hope everybody goes and listens, and there's links to it in the show notes to Battleground. All right. There you go. SE Cup. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, and I've got a great one coming up later this week, probably tomorrow, I guess, that I'm probably going to post for tomorrow with scholar and author Jessica Calarco talking about her new book, Holding It Together, How Women Became America's Safety Net. So look for that, and I can't do any of it without your support. Patreon.com. Go to iTunes and Spotify, write a review of the show. Tell your friends about the show and, of course, the community. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. No hangout tonight because I'm taking a break from the world and the news and everything, and hopefully you're getting that yourself too. And I'll talk to you later. Next week, whatever. Discord. Always folks chatting on Discord. You're never alone if you are a member of the stand-up community.
Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know gotta keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. Alright, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell